Thank you.
Thank you very much. More importantly, for taking the time. This is awesome.
Thank you a lot. So you can go next. And from Ukraine, you have Ruslan Vasyutin. He is the president of DCPHelp, the All-Ukrainian Association of Parents of Children with Cerebral Palsy, which he helped to found in 2012. His daughter, Alice, has severe cerebral palsy. After the war broke out in February this year, he and his family were able to escape to Slovakia and then to the UK, where he is now working to support other Ukrainian refugees adapted to life in their new country. Welcome, and you can start your presentation, please, Ruslan. We're not hearing you. Not yet. No.
Let's try it this way. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Oh,
So
okay.
Go ahead.
So thank you, John, for inviting me to this event, and dear friends. Actually, I don't have a presentation, and have a reason for not having it. The pictures to support my short speech are really thrilling, and you can find them on all news. But I wouldn't like to use them to distract your attention from the core value of the lessons that we learned already from the war. So I've tried to deliver my information to be useful in a form of guidelines or lessons or rules, what to do in case of emergency situations, taking into account the specificity of cerebral palsy and people with cerebral palsy, and especially children with cerebral palsy. So as you, of course, know, the life of people with cerebral palsy is already full of emergency situations. So it's a combination of special regime, special rules, special procedures, special habits. And if something really happens, like war in Ukraine, it becomes a disaster. And immediately we need total resources mobilizing. So the main lesson from being in Ukraine when the war started, to be prepared properly to support the existing process of daily needs satisfaction. So if you of advice to us, to myself, to other people who find themselves in such situations. So definitely having plan B scenario. So to have opportunities and to have possibilities to escape, to relocate, to get shelter, and having everything necessary in stock, starting from documents, cash, food, fuel, transport, medication, and communication. Having trusted people to support. It appeared to be that, yes, you have a lot of friends, you have neighbors, you have colleagues, but when war starts, everything changes dramatically. So having a reliable relationship with appropriate organizations and access to them 24 hours, 7 days per week. And the support for our children with cerebral palsy in Ukraine, for our people, adult people with cerebral palsy in Ukraine, was needed all the way at home, on the way from the home, crossing the border, settling at a new place, and integration. So after the emergency has happened and the lives are saved, then a long-term emergency and crisis management starts. And here it's always necessary to do proper networking, communicating to local NGOs and charities, getting access to all possible resources available. When we fled from the war in Ukraine, we found a lot of resources, but not all of them are available for those who can speak foreign language, who do not have appropriate communication. So it's necessary to help such people to be able to use these resources available. And of course, quality rest. Sounds simple, but after this adrenaline shock, you survive, but then you need to continue to live in new conditions. So the next step is caring for carers. You know, it's like in case of emergency on the airplane, you probably know this instruction. First, put the oxygen mask to yourself and then to your child. Sounds cruel, sounds strange, but it's realistic experience. In order to be able to take care of somebody, first you should take care of yourself in critical situation. So caring for carriers is very important in the situation of emergency. So as I've said, adrenaline treatment, a lot of people survive due to this adrenaline shock, but after a few weeks they got lost because they can't act at the same manner, they can't continue to survive, they just got lost. So it's necessary to take care of this treatment. Physical and mental health check. Many parents of Ukrainian children with cerebral palsy, they are doing and continue to do everything for their children until they completely exhausted. It's unacceptable, of course, because they need also special support. They also need special treatment and good food and psychological support. So I would emphasize that care for carers is critically important in emergency situations. Medical and social care. Finding ourselves escaping from war at a new place, it's categorically necessary to register, to get assessed, to get an official disability status and assessment, and of course the access to all benefits available, again involving charities, NGOs and volunteers and whatever network. So again, if we're talking about emergency situation and after survival, it's still necessary to be very active and very resultative. One additional nuance of emergency situations, I call it à la guerre comme à la guerre, from French, at the war as at the war. So war dictates special attitudes. And it's open secret that during the war, caring about people with disabilities is not the highest priority, unfortunately. So it's obvious, it's in some way natural that many people don't care about others and especially about those with disabilities. In order to survive, in order to continue to live, it's necessary to accept this special attitude and be tolerant and patient, and even being a kind of conflict manager. I witnessed a lot of situations when people trying to survive, spending days in a line to the border, they were becoming very cruel, very, well, animal-oriented. And unfortunately, this is a reality. This is a true story. And to blame them for that, just wasting of the time. It's just necessary to accept, to keep calm, and to take into account this kind of attitude. So the war changes minds and attitude, and it's necessary to survive in such conditions. Survival and constructive attitude. Anyway, even taking into account the complexity of the situation in emergency, the conditions in emergency situation, I would say that it's necessary to perceive it as a change, and this change as a chance, because otherwise there is no continuation of the story. And the story should be continued anyway during the war and after war. Well, about a short summary, Ukraine was not ready for this war, and people with disabilities and people with children with disabilities were not ready to this war. So it was sudden, unexpected in a way, and taking a lot of resources, making people despair. It opened a lot of problems in social care and medical care, and Ukraine appeared extremely dependent on support from outside. This support is being delivered, but the fact is Ukraine is dependent on this support. At the same time, using this support, Ukrainian people with cerebral palsy, with disabilities, and families with children with disabilities are able to survive. This is an obvious fact. And it gives us opportunity, all of us, I mean, including you and myself and Ukraine and other countries, to use this case, such cases, to improve the system from emergency situations care for individuals to emergency situation care for the nation, for the country. And it's possible using all these outcomes and summaries and these lessons. And even now, here in the UK, we use these lessons to integrate families with children with disabilities. And at the same time, we use these lessons back in Ukraine to help those who stayed there, especially to help institutionalized children with cerebral palsy who are 100% dependent on support. So to finalize my speech, I would say that these 7 months gave us a huge experience, terrible experience, but it would be a big mistake not to use it to improve not only the attitude, not only the theory, but the practical activity. First, to survive. Second, to be able to survive next time. Third, to be able to support others in similar situations. And fourth, to be able to use these lessons to improve after war. Thank you.